Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Friends and Family of Incarcerated Persons webinar series. And today we have Rae Wilson, who's going to present Emotional Intelligence is Your Key to Happiness. And Rae is the CEO of P4 Training Solutions, which is a performance development training company with emphasis on emotional intelligence. She's a professional speaker, trainer, and author. And for the past 3 years, she's worked with prison families on reentry. And welcome, Rae, and if you want to take it from here.
Thank you, Julia. I appreciate it, and I'm always absolutely ecstatic to talk about emotional intelligence, to really shed light on what emotional intelligence is, because quite frankly, it's not a great term and it's highly misunderstood. So hopefully by the end of this webinar, we're going to have a great deal more understanding about your emotions. So to start off, I want to ask, and I'd love the group to respond, either just call out or put it in the chat. Do you consider yourself emotional? Are you an emotional person?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Anybody else? Do you consider yourself to be? The next question. The next question is, do you think that your emotions affect you?
Absolutely.
I heard an absolutely. And the main question I want to ask you is, how do you think your emotions affect you? Anybody have anything they want to say about how you think your emotions affect you?
Well, I know for me that if I'm upset, that I might act differently to other people and they might think I'm upset at them, but I'm not. I'm more upset with myself.
Okay, that's great insight. Anybody else?
They kind of withdraw.
Go ahead, Gail.
They affect the way you make decisions.
That is more true than you even realize, and we're going to see that in a minute. Great observation. Anybody else? How do your emotions affect you?
I can get easily depressed and anxious or happy. Just depends, and it changes from moment to moment.
Yep, that is absolutely right. Changes from moment to moment. And we're going to see why that happens here in a minute. Anybody else have any insight into how your emotions affect you?
I kind of withdraw myself.
That is a response. That is a response, and we're going to see how well that works here in a minute. So I actually work with a number of police departments or really male-oriented groups. Right now, I'm just getting a contract for a big security firm in Las Vegas. So often I work with a lot of male-dominated police force or corporate executive men. And when you ask them, would you consider yourself emotional? They often say no. And after they've all basically said no, I say, you're having an emotion 24/7, 365. There's never 1 second in your life that you're not having an emotion. We tend to think of emotions as really high emotions like joy and happiness, or the really low emotions like sadness and depression and melancholy. We think those are, we say those are being emotional. But you're having an emotion every second. Right now you might be bored. I hope not, but you might be. You could be frustrated, you could be anxious, you could be calm, you could be content. It's a huge range of emotions that you can have, but you are always existing in an emotional state at any moment. You know, even if it's just being calm, you're existing in an emotional state. And during this webinar, I want to show you how your emotions are affecting you. And then, of course, at the end, we want to have some good solutions of how we can be more happy with our emotions. So if you look at this first graph, your emotions dictate the shape of your heart rhythm in any moment. Your emotions immediately follow, your heart rhythm immediately follows your emotions. So if you look at this graph and you look at the bottom, the graph is showing a blue line, and it's pretty even and organized, pretty balanced. That is what we call coherent. So the person that is experiencing coherent heart rhythm is feeling what we would call a positive emotion. Science calls it a coherent emotion or a renewing emotion, but colloquially, we call it a positive emotion. If you look at the top of this graph, the person that's experiencing this heart rhythm, as you can see, it's very disorganized, jaggedy, no rhythm to it at all, and it would be considered an incoherent heart rhythm. And the person at the bottom that's experiencing this heart rhythm is experiencing appreciation. The person at the top experiencing the chaotic or incoherent heart rhythm is experiencing frustration. And the really interesting thing about this is it's the same person's heart rhythm within about 2 minutes of each other. Your heart rhythm changes instantly as your emotions change. It's like, wow, that's interesting. Our heart rhythms follow our emotions. That's interesting, but kind of big deal, right? Well, it's a very big deal because it runs your entire physiology and more, as we'll see as we go along. So the shape of your heart rhythm actually determines how your autonomic nervous system works. Your autonomic nervous system is the automatic part where you don't have to think about it. Your heart rate, your blood circulation, your kidney digestion, everything that's happening that you don't have to think about is your autonomic nervous system. And the shape of your heart rhythm, whether it's that even, organized heart rhythm or that chaotic heart rhythm, is now determining how your autonomic nervous system is working. So we have two branches. We have the sympathetic, which is the speed you up part, and you have the parasympathetic, which is the brake part, the slow you down part. When you're feeling, this coherent, even, organized heart rhythm, your autonomic nervous system is working in harmony, all is well, your system is running in an optimal state. The second that you get into an incoherent heart rhythm or a chaotic, out of balance heart rhythm, now your autonomic nervous system goes haywire. It's actually like you're driving with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake at the same time. So what happens to your car when you drive around with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake at the same time?
Not good.
It's not good. It tears up your car, right? You get poor gas mileage, your car breaks down, you can't go anywhere, and your car doesn't last nearly as long when you're driving around like this. Well, if our body is our vehicle and we drive our vehicle around with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake at the same time, what do you think we're doing to our system? Tearing it down, getting poor gas mileage, and reducing the useful life of our vehicle. If you think about the word disease, dis-ease, or lack of ease, that's driving around with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake at the same time, tearing up your system. So even our medical doctors will say that diseases are stress induced. You know, over 90% of our diseases or diseases are stress induced. And stress is simply getting into that chaotic heart rhythm and now driving around with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. The next thing that happens is the shape of our heart rhythm, which is following our emotions, determines which part of the brain we access. So if you look on the right, this blue line where we have a coherent, even, organized heart rhythm, the impulses are going from your heart up to the frontal lobe, where we have creativity and intuition and problem solving and actually choice. We choose our behavior when we're in the frontal lobe. When you get into that chaotic heart rhythm, the red line, the impulses go from your heart to the back part of your brain or the reptilian part of your brain where you're in fight or flight. You're in fight or flight or repeating patterns. Before many of you came on the call, I was talking a little bit about patterns. Our patterns or perspective in life is largely developed by the time we're 7 years old. So when you get triggered into a negative pattern, you're going to repeat old behavior. Even if you say, I don't want to do this anymore, the second you get triggered and you're back in the reptilian part of the brain, you're going to repeat old patterns. For example, I'll take a graphic pattern so you can see what I mean. Domestic violence. If that's a pattern that you've learned through your environment and your programming, and you're experiencing that pattern, when you're coherent and in the frontal lobe where you choose your behavior, you may say, I'm never going to do that again. I'm so sorry. Forgive me. But when you get triggered, you're actually no longer able to think and choose your behavior. You're in that fight or flight part of the brain and you repeat old behavior patterns. So as you can see, your emotions, which determines the shape of your heart rhythm, run your autonomic nervous system, and they also run which part of the brain you're functioning out of. So your emotions are very, very important. So I want to do a little exercise to that end. So right now, I'd like everyone, and we're only going to do this for a second, to feel the emotion of fear. Just spend 10 seconds and feel fear. Now I want you to switch to the emotion of anger. Just take 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and feel anger. Now take 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and feel sadness. Now take 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and feel happiness. So what did you do in order to feel those feelings? What was your process? What did you do? How did you feel fear and anger and sadness and happiness?
I thought about a situation that happened today. Our grandson was hospitalized with a high fever. So I started thinking about him. I could not switch from fear to anger. I never made that switch. I was still kind of stuck in the fear. When you said to switch to sadness, I kind of felt a little calmer, but thinking that my grandson's going to be okay. And then when you said happiness, with happiness, I was able to um, remember that last Sunday we visited him and we had a good time with him. So
So who,
that was how I worked it.
and who am I? I don't have on the screen. Who's speaking?
This is Jim.
Hi, Jim.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
Jim, you hit upon it exactly. You had a thought. You had a thought, and that triggered fear. Now, of course, I didn't give you a lot of time to conjure up the thought for each emotion, but you had a thought when you got to happiness. You went back and thought about a week ago when you were visiting him. So you had a thought, and that triggered the emotion. So, what triggers emotions? Thoughts.
Yeah.
Thoughts are primary, and emotions run your entire physiology, your brain function, and as we'll see as we keep going, run other things that you don't even know about. So, thought is primary, and thought will always trigger a corresponding emotion. Jim, thank you for that excellent answer. So every thought that triggers emotion, every emotion is what I call all-inclusive. Every emotion has a shape, a color, a frequency, and a life view. So if you looked on this graph, I have this guy here, so he's depicting, having an emotion which corresponds to the frequency and the life view. When you are at a very low thought and therefore corresponding emotion, such as shame and guilt, your life view is humiliation, miserable, blame, evil. Life is terrible in those thoughts and emotions.
Mhm.
When you have, and this is like a scale that you go up, when you have a thought that is a thought of joy or love, you now are at the frequency and the life viewpoint of, isn't everything great? I have reverence for life. Life is glorious. It's a grand experience that we're having. So your thoughts and therefore your corresponding emotions determine how you experience life. And I often use an example. So I'll tell you this example. The example is about a cup. So imagine if you were a little kid and every time you came home from school, your mom gave you a cup of coffee or a cup of hot chocolate and said, "Honey, I love you so much. How was your day at school?" And you sit down and you have your hot chocolate and you have a grand time talking to your mom about your day at school. So you love cups because they represent the hot chocolate and the good time you have with your mom. Let's imagine another child comes home every day from school and their mom takes a cup and hits them over the head and says, "You're a dummy. You'll never amount to anything. Every day, you're a dummy. You'll never amount to anything." So when this child sees a cup, he has fear and anxiety and, hates cups. In reality, this cup does not mean anything. What you're experiencing are the thoughts and the emotions that you bring to it. And everything is like that. Things really don't mean anything. What you're experiencing are the thoughts and emotions that you're bringing to the situation, that you sort of have programmed in. So I want to at least plant the seed that if you could change your thought about something, you would completely change your experience. And I'm going to give you something that I think is really good at the end to change a thought about something you're experiencing right now to make it a much better experience for you. So just right now, I'm planting the seed that you don't experience this cup. You experience your thoughts about it. And so you get to choose how you experience things by simply changing your thoughts about them. So we're going to get a little bit more detail about that in a bit. So like I said on this graph, emotions are all-inclusive. I don't know if any of you have ever been to an all-inclusive like Sandals. You pay one price and you get everything. You get your hotel room, you get your food, you get your beverage, you get whatever recreation is there, you get everything. One price, it's all-inclusive. So emotions are just like that. It's all-inclusive. With every emotion, it determines the shape of your heart rhythm, which determines how your autonomic nervous system functions, which determines which part of the brain you access, which determines which hormones get released into your body at any moment. We are a veritable pharmacy, and the hormones and chemicals that we release every second match the emotional state that we're in. It affects our energy level, as we'll see in a second. Our emotions affect our perception. It's all inclusive, it's everything. So if we can learn to shift our thoughts and emotions, we will actually shift everything. So before I go on, because I don't want to just keep droning on, does anybody have any questions so far? Questions, thoughts, comments, anything at all?
Not at this moment.
Okay, I just don't want to give you too much and not give you a chance to talk. Okay. So I want to show this short video, which is really gonna, well, I don't want to give it away. So it's a 1-minute video, and it's 2 halves. So I want you to pay attention to the differences between the first half and the second half, because I'm going to ask you what are all the differences that you noticed. So pay attention, and in 1 minute I'll ask you all the differences between the first half and the second half. So what were the differences between the first half and the second half?
Well, the video were exactly the same, except the music or the noise in the background created tension or calm. That's how I saw it.
Great. Anybody else? Were there any actual changes in the video that you saw?
It looked like the first part of the video was a lot of chaos, like things that keep you on edge because there was a lot going on. And then the second part, I think, to me, it looked a little more calmer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but it did.
Perfect. Anybody else have any other insights?
For me, it was the second was certainly calmer. I wondered how much the music had to that, because during the first one, I was almost waiting for it to end
Like
because
hurry
it was
up.
uncomfortable.
Right.
And the second, that can go on for a while. Although seeing New York City was a little trying for me just because I have some memories from that, but that was totally unrelated to the video.
Okay. Well, that's a good observation, though, that you recognize that you have some residue on New York City, because that might be something you want to process. Any other thoughts before I tell you all the differences? All right, so it was a trick. The only difference was the music. Many times I have people say, you know, the speed of the videos were different. There were more things happening in the first video. You know, they'll come up with all kinds of stuff. The video was exactly the same, but the soundtrack was different. But you all experienced it so much differently because of the soundtrack. And that's exactly the same as our emotional state. Our emotional state is the soundtrack that we're in. So when we're agitated and frustrated, we look out at the video going by and say, oh my gosh, you know, what a crappy, chaotic, horrible world it is. And when we feel peaceful and calm, we look out at the same video and we're like, it's a pretty good life here. Things are good. It does not matter what happens outside. It's only what's happening on the inside that matters, that determines how you experience things. When you really do not experience anything, you experience your thoughts about it. So I want to talk quickly, time is getting away from us a little bit, but real quickly about energy, and then I actually want to talk about the good stuff that I really want to talk about. So in this graph, husband and wife are wearing heart rate monitors 24 hours a day to see how their emotions affect their energy level and their heartbeat. In this particular graph, it's a husband and wife riding along in a car. The wife is driving and the husband is a passenger. And this is the husband's heart readout. And as you can see on the left, his heart is beating on average about 60 beats per minute. Then his wife said something that upset him or got under his skin. And as you can see, his heart jumped up to 140 beats a minute, over 140 beats per minute. So we all know that when we get angry, our heart starts racing. But the part we don't know is what happens here on the back end. As you see, the heart rate starts coming back down, and they've finished the argument, they've gotten over it, but the heart comes down, but it's still elevated by about 30 beats per minute. From the baseline that was 60 at the beginning to after the argument, it's still at 90 beats per minute. And this is going to last for up to 2 hours before the husband's heart rate gets back down to his baseline. So he's wasting 30 heartbeats per minute. Now, if you think about a day where, you know, you're running late for work and you spill coffee on yourself, maybe you drop your cell phone and crack the screen, you get triggered and you get angry and your heart starts racing to 140 beats per minute, and it takes 2 hours to calm back down. Then you go out to lunch and, you know, everything's cool, but somebody cuts you off in traffic, your heart starts getting elevated again, and then 2 hours to get back down to your baseline, and you're wasting 30 heartbeats per minute. And you're at your office job and you're just about to leave to go home, but somebody calls you to complain about something and your heart gets elevated again for, you know, 2 more hours of wasting 30 heartbeats per minute. You get home from your office job and you're exhausted and you lay on the couch and say, oh, I can't move, I'm so exhausted. You are not exhausted from expending physical energy. You are exhausted from wasted heartbeats. You've wasted all these heartbeats all throughout the day. You've also released cortisol into your system, the stress hormone. So at the end of the day, you've been running cortisol, you've been wasting heartbeat. It's kind of like having a gas tank and somebody sticks a hole in it and it's just spewing gas all day as you drive along. You're just wasting all that energy.
That's a good example.
So can anyone relate to that? It's like, oh my gosh, when I get angry and just spewing all this energy and I'm just exhausted because I have not been efficient with my system during the day.
Definitely. Yeah.
So the next graph is, and these are actual graphs done by the Institute of Heart Math. These are real scientific studies. So this is a police officer going out on a domestic violence call. And as you can see on the left-hand side, his heart is beating about 70 beats per minute. That's his baseline. Goes out on the domestic violence call and his heart jumps up to over 180 beats per minute. As you can imagine, super stressful. Then he leaves the call, and just like the other graph, his heart comes back down, but does not come down to baseline. And then it says officer shifts and resets, and then he gets back down to his baseline. And if you look at the bottom, the moment where he was completely elevated was 11:44, and at 11:54, he's back down to his baseline, and that's after the call. So he learned a coherence technique to shift back into that coherent heart rhythm. And we're going to learn our technique at the end of this call so that you can do that. But as you can see, how much energy he conserved by getting back down to his baseline within a few minutes instead of just, going on and on, wasting all that energy. So your emotions are what determines your energy level, not your physical activity. Anybody have any thoughts or comments about that before we go on? Okie doke. Oh, so I wanted to show you this energy stick. If we were all in a room together, I'd have us get in a circle and hold hands. And then when we connected our hands, this energy stick would light up. And then I'd have somebody, way off in the distance drop their hand and it would stop lighting up. The reason this energy stick lights up is because our body is electric. We are an electric energy system. Our heart is electric. And this has a great deal of implications for communication. So our heart is electric, and wherever there's electricity, a magnetic field is created. If you plug a plug into a light socket, a magnetic field is created. So our heart is electric, and a magnetic field is created around us. And we communicate through this electromagnetic field. As you can see in this graph, these two people's electromagnetic fields are overlapping each other. So the emotion of one person is affecting the emotion of another person because their fields are overlapping. You might say, that's interesting, but I've never heard anything like this, so I'm not sure if it's true. Well, do you have certain people that it's like, oh my gosh, whenever I'm around Julia, I feel great. I just love her energy. I feel great. I feel happy around Julia. And then you think of old Max the Grouch, and I hope there's no Maxes on the phone. And whenever I'm around Max, oh my gosh, he just sucks the life out of me. And after a little while, I just need to get away from him. We all know people that make us feel good and people that suck the life out of us. And we don't really know, we've never even thought about this, but that is because our electromagnetic fields are overlapping and their energy is affecting us at a scientific, provable, cellular level. So if I was going into a long thing about communication, I would talk about the fact that words are 7% of communication, and voice tone and body language is 23%. So what's the other 70%? The other 70% is the energetics of our communication. So, you know, when one person can make you feel good, that's the energetic part that you're feeling. Or when you say somebody gave you the cold shoulder, did they put an ice pack on their shoulder and say, cold shoulder? No, you felt the coolness from them, or that, you know, you feel cool or disconnected. And when you say somebody's warm and friendly, did you run over and take their temperature to see if they were warm? No, you're feeling that warmth through them. So this is this electromagnetic field that you're feeling their energy. It kind of operates like a cell phone signal. We're going to skip over that. Oh, I hope our slides keep working. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
So here we go. I don't know what happened on my end. So this is a boy and a dog. Now, I want to ask you, before I show these communication slides, you all know that Julia just released a book called The Hidden Sentence. Do any of you ever feel that hidden sentence, what she's talking about?
Absolutely, I do.
Yeah, of course.
It's Jim.
Okay. So I'm hoping by the end of showing you these slides and explaining them to you, we can reduce that hidden sentence a bit. And I will explain that after these slides. So this boy and his dog, they go into the laboratory, they're wearing heart rate monitors. And the boy is told, don't touch the dog, don't engage with the dog, don't do anything with the dog. At a certain point, just have loving feelings about the dog. And when the boy had loving feelings about the dog, even though he's not touching the dog, not petting the dog, not talking to the dog, not engaging with the dog, just in his mind having loving thoughts about the dog, his heart rhythm and the dog's heart rhythm go into a synchronized pattern. This next slide, a mother and her baby wearing heart rate monitors and head monitors. Again, the mom is told, don't touch the dog.
Baby.
Moving on. Don't touch the baby, don't pick up the baby, don't engage with the baby, don't coo at the baby. Just have thoughts about the baby. And when the mother simply has loving thoughts about the baby, the mother's brain waves go into a synchronized pattern with the baby's heart rhythm. And this happens non-locally. This is all based on science. Non-locally means distance does not matter. You can think about your child in China and go into a synchronized pattern with them. Because non-local means distance doesn't matter, you're energetically connected with them. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Another experiment with 40 people, and 30 of them are taught how to get coherent, which we're going to do in a minute, and 10 of them are control subjects, so they don't know anything. But they're wearing heart rate monitors. Then they put these 40 people into 10 groups of 4. And as you can see, 3 of them know how to get coherent. So at a certain cue, they're like, they do this exercise we're going to do. And they get coherent. And if you look at the guy at the bottom, he doesn't know anything. And he's incoherent, as you see by the red line. But when the 3 of them get coherent, he switches into a state of coherence just because of the effect of the other people. we kind of know this when we hang around happy people, pretty soon we start feeling happy too.
Yeah.
So we can have a tremendous effect on other people when we're coherent. We can help facilitate them getting coherent also. The reason that I say we can help take a little bit off of this hidden sentence. Why do you feel the hidden sentence? Why do you feel, what is part of this hidden sentence emotionally?
For me, it's memories of things that I've done and people I've harmed, for example.
Okay.
And I was incarcerated for that.
Okay. Anybody else?
Shame, guilt.
Shame, guilt, sadness. You know, I attended your book launch the other day, and you were talking about, you know, until you didn't even know you were living the hidden sentence for a long time, right? And it's hard to feel like you have permission to be happy when you have a loved one that's incarcerated. I am here to tell you today the absolute best thing that you can do for your incarcerated person is to be happy. Because you are energetically linked with the people you love. This graph right here. You're energetically linked and bonded to any person that you've ever loved. Distance doesn't matter, location doesn't matter. So when you can get coherent and feel happy, it literally benefits them. So the greatest benefit you can do for your incarcerated person is to feel happy. And that even though they don't know what you're doing, you're energetically linked, and your happiness facilitates their happiness, even though you can be across the world and they don't need to know that you're doing it. So I know that sometimes we feel guilty because we're out living life and we feel like we should feel guilty. But if we actually knew that being happy is truly the greatest gift that you can give your loved one, it gives you the permission to go ahead and be happy, because that is actually doing some good for them. Anybody have any thoughts about that?
I am confused.
Okay, let's talk.
I'm confused with that.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is because by your loved one being incarcerated, it's stressful. It may not be as stressful for them, but it's stressful for you because you're on the outside, because they know, okay, this is it for them. They know they're there. They're not going anywhere. But we're on the outside and we're stressful. So how do you move into happiness?
Okay, so how did Jim have a happy thought a while ago about his grandson that's in the hospital? He thought about a week ago when he visited his grandson and remembered that happy thought, that happy feeling. Your thoughts trigger your emotions. We're going to do an exercise to help you in a minute. But why I'm telling you this right now is to give you permission to be happy, because a lot of times we have this crazy belief that if we feel guilty or sad, we should, and that somehow, or people worry because they think, well, worrying is going to help us. Guilt, shame, and worry don't help anyone, and they don't help your incarcerated loved one either. When you are happy, it facilitates their energetic connection and actually helps them improve their mood too. So I'm saying, the greatest gift that you can give them is to be happy. give yourself permission that it is okay to be happy. Knowing your happiness facilitates their energy because you are connected at an energy level. No matter what distance has happened, what time has happened, it doesn't matter. Your energy bond, when you're happier, it lifts them up. And how do you get happy? You have a thought. We're going to, does that help clarify at all? We're going to do an exercise here in a second, but does that at all help you?
Not, it makes me think, that I could think happy thoughts.
Okay, so let's do an exercise. And thinking happy thoughts is a really, you might think that it makes no difference at all, but there's, I promise you, a ton of science showing how your thoughts affect your physiology and your connection with other people. So you being happy actually helps them. It really, really does. And how do you get happy? You have happy thoughts. But we're going to do an actual exercise here to show you how science calls it coherence. And it's to get into that heart rhythm that's even and organized and balanced. I have met with Julia and Les in their home last year, showing them some of this science. And if we were in person, I could put you on biofeedback software to show you that your thoughts facilitate having a coherent heart rhythm. Julia, do you want to share what happened with Les when we did that?
When you asked him what he loves.
Right.
Me.
Right, exactly.
Les loves hockey. And when he thought of hockey, his everything just went, whatever the energy thing does, his energies just went really high. And you could tell that he has this real love for hockey. And that's why we watch all the Golden Knights games.
Les wasn't at a hockey game. All Les did is I had him on the biofeedback software and I said, think about something that you love. And he didn't tell us at the moment what he was thinking about. He just, in his own mind, started thinking about something that he loved. And the graph just went completely coherent. Like he had a huge effect instantly. So after he got finished, I'm like, so what were you thinking? Because you really got, coherent is the scientific word for energy balance. He got really emotionally balanced instantly. And he said he thought about hockey. And so you can have a thought about anything and you get coherent. It doesn't matter if it happened today, 10 years ago, 30 years ago, because your mind doesn't know if you're having the experience now or recalling it. It functions the same way. So recalling happy memories puts you into a really good state. And that helps anybody that you care about, no matter where they are in the world. Does that help with some clarity?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, good. Okay, so now I want to teach you an exercise so that we can get into those even heart rhythms. Now this is called the quick coherence technique. We're probably going way over time. Oh, we are. We'll do this real quickly.
Well, I'm good if everybody else is. This is important.
Okay, I'm good if everyone else is too. So this technique is one of my favorite. We teach a whole suite of many, many techniques, but I often teach this technique because it's so simple. It only has a couple steps to it. You can remember it. You can do it in the heat of the moment. It's not like, you have to go off into a closet and meditate, after an incident. You can do it right now and get coherent. So I'm going to tell you the steps, then we're going to take a couple minutes and do it together. So the first step is to focus your attention on the area of your heart. Imagine you're breathing in and out from your heart or chest area deeply and slowly. This does two things, just so you understand that, this is having a real effect. The first thing is, wherever you put your attention, your energy goes. So if I say, think about your big toe, your energy goes to your big toe. If I say, think about your car, your energy goes to your car. But when I say, think about your heart or put your attention on your heart, that helps you get into an internal state instead of an external state. And then when we begin breathing deeply and slowly, that activates the parasympathetic branch of our nervous system, which is the slow down, calm down branch of our autonomic nervous system. So if you don't remember anything about anything, deep breathing will help you get out of an unhappy state. Always remember deep breathing. So we're going to focus on our heart and breathe in and out deeply and slowly. And then we're going to make a sincere attempt to feel a positive feeling, a feeling of appreciation or care for something or someone. Like Les thought about hockey. And as Jim said earlier, he had a thought, which is how he felt those emotions. If you just think about something that you really love, a pet, a grandchild, a sport, sitting on the beach, doesn't matter. It's what happens is when you have that thought, it gets you into that calm, happy state of being. So that's the whole technique. Do the heart focused breathing and then have the renewing happy thought. So let's take 2 minutes and do it together. Now, of course you can do it eyes open, eyes closed. For myself, I close my eyes because it gets my attention away from the world and back into myself. But you can do this in the heat of an argument to calm yourself down. So focus your attention on the area of your heart and just start breathing deeply and slowly. Like 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. That activates the parasympathetic branch of your autonomic nervous system and will always calm you down. And then as you're just lightly continuing to focus your attention on your heart and breathe deeply and slowly, just think about that thing that is always a great positive thing. Hockey, your dog, the beach, anything at all. And we'll just sit here for a second and do this technique. Just relax your body as much as possible. Wherever you're feeling tension, just sink into your heart and think about that thing that's always great. And you should notice that you're feeling much more calm, much more pleasant, much more relaxed, much more of what we say in science of being coherent, which is in an optimal emotional state where we can operate our best from and we can choose our behavior and we can be creative and we can problem solve, because we can't do that when we're upset. Okay, so does anyone have any thought about what they felt doing that technique?
It was nice. I felt almost a little warm.
Good, pleasant. That's why we use those terms. Somebody felt warm and friendly. because our positive flowing energy does feel warm because we're not constricting it. Anybody else have any thoughts they want to share?
Well, Phyllis wrote that she feels calm, and that's what I was going to say, just feel very calm,
Yeah, and so
peaceful.
we can do this, number one, to calm ourselves down. We can do this even if we were in an argument with someone. You can focus on your heart and deep breathe even while you're continuing to talk with them, and it will change the energy dynamic. But in reality, the very best thing we can do is to do this every day to build up our emotional state. We all have what we call an emotional set point. And if we just do these type of techniques, we'll actually raise our emotional set point and then be able to deal with life issues much better before they happen. Heart math calls that building your resilience. Everybody thinks about resilience as the ability to bounce back, but if you build your coherence level, you build your resilience on the front end so that you can deal with things and you don't have to bounce back. So does anybody have any thoughts or questions, comments?
You know, this is really, it's funny how, sometimes you could do things, in your everyday life. Like on my break, I would go, we have a bench in the bathroom, separate from the bathroom. And I would go in there and I would just get quiet and think about when I would get into my racquetball tournaments because I really enjoyed them. But I had no clue that I was doing this, getting my body in a coherent position, let's just say, It's
Absolutely.
really, yeah, so weird.
Well, great job. Our body has intuitive intelligence. If we will just listen to it, it will tell us what to do. I often, as I showed Julie and Les, a year ago, I put them on this biofeedback software. But our body is our biofeedback software. Our emotions will tell us how we're doing. If you feel anxious and constricted and separated, you know that you're not, in a coherent state. And if you feel good, you know your thoughts and emotions are coherent. So if you just take 10 seconds to say, how do I feel? You will know, okay, I'm disconnected. I need to get coherent. Or, hey, I'm doing fantastic. And the other thing, somehow our culture has trained us to believe that it's a good idea to worry about things and think about bad things because we're being responsible when we do that. I just want to tell you that's not responsible. Thinking about good things and thinking about the possibilities and thinking about happy things is the greatest effect that we can have for ourselves and others by being coherent and facilitating our own energy state and being in that part of the brain where we can choose our behavior. So, we need to let go of this idea that worrying helps in some way because it doesn't. Anybody else have any thoughts or comments they want to share or anything that surprised them about their emotions that they didn't know? Okay.
I'm going to stop the recording and then we can have a minute to chat with everybody. So thank you so much. I feel very calm in the chat. Several people have been saying how calm they feel. And I know people listening to this after that weren't able to attend are going to get a lot of benefit from it. So I just want to thank you so much.
It is always my pleasure to let people understand more about their emotions, and they're the perfect feedback system, to tell us how we're doing and just to let us get back on track. So thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.